For me, the best thing about Creative Computing Institute is the sense of community that we're creating. This is one of the few places in the world where you can see things from an arts perspective and also a science and technology perspective at the same time. And that means that together everyone is talking about something they can't really talk about anywhere else.
I studied at University of Arts London. I was like the techie person in like traditional design environments where maybe some of the things I needed or the spaces, the conversations I wanted to have did not exist. So when I knew that the CCI was being created, I was always trying to find ways on how I can get involved.
This is the first cohort of students in the program. I've been really impressed at how much they've taken the materials we've given them and made them their own.
Every time I come in the building, the students are just like chomping at the bit to show their work to people. I think it'll be a very, very good career for them.
So I'm showing my first project on the diploma. I thought it would be interesting to explore what if we could see in sound rather than light.
So I did the week-long machine learning course and the P5.js course with the CCI, and it's really helped me sort of develop my practice and teach me more of the development side of coding.
It's really changed my mind about like what computation is, what it means to the world, what it means like to society at large. Like, in the course of a year, I've like really changed how I'm thinking about it.
We have a beautiful mission and a great social agenda, and we really want to positively impact the way tech works in society.
I think of computing as a craft exercise, like pottery or weaving. It's going to take you a long time to become a master of it, but the first steps should be approachable by anyone. And I think that's an important part of what we do here at CCI.
Hello everyone, welcome to this open day session. And my name is Georgina Capdevila. I'm the creative learning producer at CCI. And today we are here to talk about the Masters of Research MRes in Creative Computing. To give you a bit of an overview of how the session is going to run, we're going to start sharing a bit about the CCI, where it's located, and what resources and facilities are available to CCI students. Then we will have Mick with us, who will talk us through the approach of the MRes and how it's structured. Then Rebecca as well will be with us talking about the projects and things that we are interested in developing at CCI. And we also have Kenneth Lim, who's a current MRes student at the CCI, who will share a bit of his experience undertaking the course. So just as a note on accessibility, the platform that we're using today, Blackboard Collaborate, doesn't display live captions. So just to note that we are recording this session and it will be posted on YouTube so you can rewatch. So don't worry if you miss any detail, it will all be captioned after in a few days time, and we'll be recording with you as well. So we are gonna start with a video that I myself put together, in which I will share some bits that you might be interested in knowing, and hopefully that will give you an overview of how the community within UAL and CCI is structured and what are all these spaces that will be available to you once you start this journey with us. So here we go with the first video. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you in a second. Hi everyone! In this video we're going to show you around the campus and share some of the facilities and resources available to CCI students. The Creative Computing Institute is located at UAL's Peckham Road campus in Camberwell, South East London. The local area is home to a thriving art scene, which hosts a variety of art galleries and artist studios that students, graduates, and staff work and exhibit in. On site, there are two galleries, Camberwell Space and the Student Union Gallery, with the South London Gallery right next door and Peckham Platform in the local area. Also, on site we have an amazing library supported by a dedicated CCI librarian who oversees the subject area of creative computing, ensuring the library stays up to date with the books, periodicals, databases, and other resources you need to complete your studies. The CCI is located across the 4th and 5th floor of the newest building at Peckham Road, which means it's very accessible to students with various needs. Let's take a look around. The CCI is divided into 4 main areas. At the heart of the space is the kitchen. At lunchtime, it becomes a social hub of CCI for folks to share lunch together, and during classes it's quite a working space. Along the side are 3 classrooms, 2 seminar rooms and 1 high-end computer suite fitted with some of the latest technology, including 24 high-spec computers with NVIDIA RTX 2080 graphics cards and 4K monitors for working on projects ranging from machine learning to 3D rendering and video editing. Additionally, many of these computers can actually be accessed remotely from home after hours to enable access to specialist software or the high performance for rendering or machine learning work. In addition to the computing facilities, we have dedicated spaces set up for electronics, soldering, 3D printing, and virtual reality facilities. Elsewhere within the building, CCI students have access to the 3D workshop, which includes additional 3D printing facilities, laser cutting, CNC machining, and a full wood workshop. We take COVID-19 safety very seriously, so at the moment our spaces are reconfigured to enable students to spread out 2 meters apart. There's also loads of windows to ensure good ventilation and hand and surface sanitizer throughout the space to keep things clean, on top of regular visits from cleaning staff. In normal times, we also operate a laptop locker system where students can borrow a laptop to use within the CCI spaces. This is just a glimpse of the amazing resources and facilities that are going to be available for you while studying at CCI. Now, I would like to briefly talk about the CCI social mission and public program. At CCI, we aim to integrate computational thinking with approaches to fairness and equality for the UAL and wider community. This is formally codified through our social mission, which focuses on diversity in technology, digital inclusion, and entrepreneurship. Our public program is underpinned by this mission and connects students, practitioners, and researchers with an international community of creative computing professionals. The aim of the public program is to offer a platform where UAL students, staff, and industry people can explore creative technology through workshops, public events, intensive courses, and fellowships awarded to practitioners in the field. To give you a sense of what you have the chance to take part in while studying at CCI, here are some of the programs that we've run. CCI's inaugural fellowship in 2018 was awarded to Feminist Internet. We ran a series of workshops exploring the idea of a feminist Alexa. Our second fellowship was awarded to CreativeApplications.net, in which we delved into creative coding with custom LED displays and innovative ways to apply to new technologies. CCI awarded its third fellowship to artist and researcher Anna Riedler. Together, we ran a learning program called Artificial AI, where we explored some of the problematics embedded in datasets. In parallel, we run several week-long intensive courses open to all UAL students, which included inclusive design in wearable technology, designing a feminist chatbot, computational thinking with P5.js, machine learning for the creative industries, design with data and interactive machine learning, and the latest one we run, Querying Voice AI Transcendent Design. We also started the CCI After School Club, now renamed Tech Yard, a safe space aimed at young people, families, and beginners based in the local area in Peckham and Camberwell, who want to learn creative computing in a supportive environment. This is just a quick overview of all the opportunities that we've been able to provide to UAL and CCI students over the last 2 years. But there are so many exciting things that are on the way and that we cannot wait for you to take part in. Thanks so much for watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed what you just seen, and now let's keep moving. Hello again, I hope you found that useful. So now we're gonna move on, and I'm gonna invite Professor Mick Greason to join us on this virtual space so he can talk a little bit in more detail about the MRes in creative computing. So Mick, if you're with us, it would be great to hear from you.
Hi, Georgina. Thanks very much. Hi, everyone. And hi, if you're here live, it's great. Thanks for turning up. And if you're watching this on the recording, that's cool. Thanks for checking this out. I'm going to share my screen for a bit, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the MRes, talk through the material which we've published about the MRes and try and give some context about it. And then we're going to give you some more information about the kinds of projects that you might want to be doing on the MRes. And also, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Rebecca Fiebrink, when we do that, and she'll give you lots of ideas about the sorts of things you might be interested in or that you may not have thought about doing. So, okay, so the MRes, what is it and what's it for? Now, I'm just going to share my screen. So, the Creative Computing Institute, as Georgina has already explained, is a place where we want to create an environment that's very open about computing in a different way, that treats computing in a way which is just as technically competent and as engaged as other forms of computer science, but that approaches computing from a very different perspective, or from a range of different perspectives. And that's one of the goals that we have. And that's just as true in terms of our research. And what this means is it's an opportunity to think about research in a way that other computing research might not always have the chance to. And so it's an opportunity for people who want to do computing differently to have a place where they can do that. But one of the problems is it's sometimes very hard to know what you want to do. You might, especially if you've had a background from the creative industries or from some other field which is not specifically related to computer science, but if you are engaged in using computing for different purposes, whether that's for making creative artworks or for thinking about social issues, for thinking about any number of different application areas, you might just not have had a chance yet to think how that might turn into a research project. I think that's fair enough, right? I think it's fair enough not to know, and it's fair enough to need time. And so with that in mind, we've put together the MRes in creative computing. The purpose of the course is to give you an opportunity to really think, to spend time thinking about what it is that you want to do, to give you a chance to learn a lot more about what's available, what other people are doing. Try to understand the way that they do research. Think about how people involved in computing research in creative environments, in the context that we've described, go about speculating about things, investigating problems, sometimes just uncovering problems and understanding them in more detail. And that means there's a lot to learn, because this is always the challenge. When you're trying to do something in a different way or from a different perspective, it's quite hard to find good information about it. You know, there's plenty of information about things where everybody already understands how it's done. But when things are a bit fresh and a bit new or very diverse, it's quite hard sometimes to see how you might approach them. And also, we want to be open about the ideas that people bring to us. We want people to feel open that they can develop ideas which maybe we've not thought of. But in order to do that, there's quite a lot to come to terms with to begin with about how you would present those ideas, how you might communicate what's going on for you to other people in ways that can change the way you see things and the way that then we see things. Fundamentally, research is about changing how people understand the world. And sometimes that means eventually, or maybe sometimes right at the start, changing how people do things. And all of that takes considerable thought and considerable time. You might be thinking, you know, I'd like to do a PhD, because a PhD is a way that is recognized for people interested in academia to engage in changing how people understand the world and changing how people do things. But in order to get to that point, you really have to know your field very well. You have to understand your question or the problems that you're investigating already very well before you can really start. The MRes is designed for people in that position, people who haven't really thought about or haven't been given the opportunity to think about what it is they want to do about the problems that they're seeking. You might not even be sure how those problems look. It might be that you have a sense of them, but you've not really had a chance to focus on them. So this website gives you some information about that. So sure, you know, I think it's important that you consider the kinds of approach you want to take with respect to your, for example, the way you approach technology. If technology is something which is important to you, but you're concerned about how technology is used, or you're thinking about how new technologies might change what's available or how people might do things, that could be a really good way in. But there are an awful lot of other people already doing this, and you need to spend some time, I think, learning about that and letting it sink in and taking time to think. So how does the course work? Well, at CCI, I think you may already know this, but just in case you don't, we have a range of research themes. And in most of the work that happens here, research that people do tends to fall in within these three themes. And so it's worth considering these right at the outset. The first one is creativity, machine learning, and AI. And this theme is very much about how machine learning and AI, which is very current in contemporary conversation, is changing how people do things in the creative industries and also creatively beyond the creative industries and also in the arts. It's also about how we can be responsible in and change our approach to machine learning and AI and see it differently and understand how to take control and use it for democratic purposes, which I think is a slightly different approach to what you might find in other traditional computer science environments, for example. So that creative AI theme is a strong one here, and it's one that we feel very passionately about. But another important theme for us is just actually part of the mainstream discipline, if you like, of computer science, which is human-computer interaction, which is really about exploring how we behave with emerging technologies, understanding how people use technologies, understanding how technologies change how people behave, and how this changes the way we interact, and what questions are thrown up as a result of that. Also, how we solve problems through interaction with computers and technology, and change how people do things and how they understand the world and themselves. So sometimes we talk about HCI, that's short for human-computer interaction. And if you're interested in any of those things I've just spoken about, HCI is a great path for you, perhaps. But also, it's an enormous field. And it might take some time for you to understand it. And it's impossible to really express that large field in just a couple of glib sentences that I've just spoken to you about now. It's a very dense research field with a rich history. But it is also very important for what we do, and it intersects with all of the other themes, the other two main themes that I'm going to talk about, including, creativity, machine learning, and AI, which I've already mentioned, but also the final theme in our three-theme package, which is platforms, big data, and digital citizenship. And we talk about this a lot, but this is becoming more important for us and for everyone. Creating environments where large amounts of data are being collected and used by people, by companies, sometimes global tech companies, who aren't really considering populations or communities in the same way that you or I might. That's an interesting, potentially powerful, also ethically questionable and difficult, gnarly issue. Should we be building our own communities, our own platforms? Should we be collecting our own data more? What access should we have to our data? How can we be better citizens about how we treat each other online? How does our data affect other people's data? By contributing on Facebook, are you changing how other people's lives are led? What are the real issues there? How can we engage with them? And we think this is just as important as any of the other areas that we really focus on. And that's why it's one of our big themes. So just to be very quickly, give you a rundown of the units that are on the MRes and the focus which it has. So as I said, this is about developing a perspective on research in computing, in creative computing. And the first thing that we try to get you to think about, or one of the very most important things that we want you to think about, is methods. So methods 1 and methods 2 are about understanding how to conduct research, the sorts of things that you need to know in order to do research well, which includes qualitative approaches, which might be talking to people, getting surveys, interviews, using video and audio, but also how to do that rigorously. And also quantitative methods, which includes computer science methodologies, big data analysis, things you will have heard of people talk about in the press. Actually learning how to do that is really fundamental to being able to carry out good research. At CCI, the confluence and combination of qualitative and quantitative research is very important to us. And it's good to do one and it's good to do the other. But personally, and I think generally, we have a belief and also evidence that both really help. Both are very important. Also, understanding the domain you're in is very important. Knowing that you're understanding which domain, as in which area of life you really want to explore, is somewhat critical, because different problems affect different people in different contexts differently. Some problems apply to all things in the world, but mostly when you're doing research, you find that's not the case. Or if it is, it's actually hard to wrangle it. Maybe it would be easier if you focused on one particular area. Achieving that focus is very, very important. Reducing what you do down to a particular focus takes a knowledge of domains. And so that's another important part in terms of methods. Programming is also essential. Being able to program is a way of unlocking not just good quantitative methods, but also good qualitative methods. Also, creating prototypes as a means to conduct research requires coding skill. So we give you that too. Ethics is also fundamental to the MRes and all research. At CCI, we make every one of our students submit ethics descriptions, an ethical description to take an ethical perspective as part of their proposal. Knowing what the ethical implications are of what you do is as essential as knowing what you do. And so we have a whole unit which is just focused on that. In addition to this, we help you with understanding research design, understanding how to collect data, how to evaluate data. And then we give you an opportunity to conduct your research project, your first research project. And the idea is that through that entire process, you develop an understanding of what research is, how to conduct research effectively, what that research can lead to in terms of new knowledge and new understanding, how you can improve the focus to draw in the threads to a fine point where you can find a line of response in the work that you're most passionate about. And sometimes uncover things you didn't know were there that change the way you see the world and then will maybe change the way everybody sees everything. Also understanding the difference between what you might now think is very important and what you might think is very important in a year's time once you've had a long enough time to think about it. Just a few more words about the way that things happen. Generally speaking, this program focuses on lectures and seminars, and the lectures provide information and the seminars give you an opportunity to discuss, to try out ideas. There's also studio and lab-based practice and masterclasses. You will spend an awful long time talking with people who do this every day, who conduct research every day. We're highly research active at UAL. We have a large number of research grants for a very small team, and we're constantly working on refining those ideas and thinking of new ways to do things. You'll also be given an opportunity to conduct your own project work, and you'll receive feedback on that. You'll get all the technical tuition you require, and you'll be working in groups and also on your own. All of these things are important for the way that we are trying to encourage you to take a focused approach to developing your research questions. And then at the end of the whole process, what we're looking for is to give you the abilities and the skills and allow you to develop perspectives so you can deliver very focused research and also create a research project idea which you feel passionate about and that everybody can see the value in. So yes, that's basically what the course is about. But what kinds of projects might you want to support, or might we want to help you develop? With that in mind, I'm going to pass on to my colleague, Dr. Rebecca Febrink, who is a world-leading expert in all of the areas that I've just described, and I have many things to tell you.
Thank you, Mick. And nice to see everybody here, both those of you who are here currently and those of you watching the recorded version. So a few things to say about the kinds of projects that you might develop in your independent work within the MRes and the kinds of PhD research projects that we would want you to be prepared to undertake following their MRes, or the kinds of project proposals that we want you to be very comfortable with proposing at the end of the MRes as you look forward into what you might want to do for larger scale research. So unlike certain programs at CCI, we don't have just a list of project ideas and say, well, if you want to come work with us, you're going to have to, select something off of this list. That said, for our PhD program, we generally expect students to have a fairly well-formed, specific, detailed proposal coming in. We don't necessarily expect that from our master's students. As in the MRes program, as Mick said, our goal is to get you to that point by the end of the MRes program. And part of our job, therefore, is to try to help you explore the space of possible projects in this intersection between technology, creativity, and society, and to introduce you to the methods that are going to be useful for a really wide variety of application domains, and hopefully help you figure out, with your given background, your given skills, your particular interests, how does that all sort of match up into something that you're really excited about working on. So Mick and I both have, I've got over a decade of supervising PhD students and master's research students. Mick has even more than that. And I think one of the highlights for both of us is that we've had a chance to work with students who from all sorts of different disciplines, have all sorts of different interests. And we really enjoy helping those students by talking through the ideas that they're interested in, by passing on the technical and research skills that we have, and also by learning from their outside background and expertise that they bring in to stretch us in different ways. So the MRes is also very much about that. So let's get a little bit more specific. What kinds of things might students be interested in coming to the MRes? What kinds of projects might we be looking for you to spend your time on in that MRes project? Obviously, right, the three areas that we have to work with are technology, creativity, and society, right? If you think about the research themes that Mick was talking about earlier, those are all sort of different instantiations of the intersections of these fields. This means that obviously we expect to have a lot of students who are interested in creating new technologies for creative practice, or using emerging technologies in creative practice, or thinking about how they could be used in other people's creative practice. But that's more of a launching point than a description of a project, right? Some research projects that our master's students and PhD students do might at least begin with really understanding a design space, right? It's not necessarily about saying, hey, here's a technology, we're going to use this, but saying, hey, wait a second, what does the design space potentially look like for this technology that we know is on the horizon, whether that's an AI and machine learning based technology, or something around signal processing, or something around natural language processing or social media, right? There are all sorts of interesting angles through this, biotechnologies, for instance, where we could say, what are the potential uses in art? What are the potential uses in accessibility? What are the potential uses in design, in aiding people in different creative fields, or aiding people who have an interest in social impact, for instance? And so here we can, think about research methods, which you may or may not have heard of at this point, but research methods might include technology probes. They might include very lo-fi prototyping, where you're using paper, sticky notes, 3D, models in clay, whatever, to test out ideas with people, rather than starting out and typing an algorithm into code. We use Wizard of Oz techniques. We use body storming and participatory design techniques to engage with communities, especially communities of people who might be using our technology or who might be stakeholders impacted in some way by new technologies. Obviously, there's also a huge space for potential projects in working with somewhat higher fidelity prototypes, right? If you have an idea for a new creative technology of some sort, often it can be great to build a prototype, test it with people, and find out more about what it does. Not to say, oh, this is a good or a bad technology, but to ask questions about, hey, you know, what might work here? What might be valuable to this group of people? What doesn't work here? What does it look like to take a technology that was maybe developed within computer science or engineering and put it in a creative space or give it to designers? What new challenges arise that we hadn't thought of? What new affordances might exist that we hadn't thought of? What kind of criteria should we even be using to evaluate whether a technology is good or useful in a space? There's of course, also potentially a role to evaluate new technologies computationally. If you say, hey, I want to do some kind of maybe video processing algorithm or computer listening, maybe it makes sense to say, let's benchmark it alongside other existing state-of-the-art technologies. If you have an idea for how you might make something better in a particular context, can we show that computationally? Can we run it on some test data, for instance? Of course, we also work with a lot of students who are themselves creators, often professional creators. And we encourage students to develop and use methods like autoethnography, where they might be developing a technology initially for themselves or even primarily for themselves, and exploring questions again about, you know, what are the consequences of this new technology, or how might you make it even better, or how might you evaluate it within the context not of the entire world, but in the context of your own individual practice. That's absolutely a valid starting point for research as well. And of course, throughout all the work that we do at CCI, as Mick discussed, considerations of ethics, of social impact. These are really important to us. Research that explicitly focuses on these questions is very welcome. And again, I think this exists right alongside technology development. It exists alongside design. It exists alongside all the palette of tech tools that we have as a first order concern for us. I want to say a little bit about domains now. So what kinds of people am I talking about, or is Mick talking about when we talk about creators? I think we both use this word very broadly, as does the rest of CCI. We don't just mean professional artists or musicians or designers. Certainly, yes, you know, those people are part of the creative technology family, but we do work with games designers and games players, VR, music, audio, audiovisual art, interactive art, film, sculpture, robotics, installations, dance. Mick and I have worked with people in all of these areas, and other folks at CCI have an even broader set of areas that they work with. On the technology side, again, we each bring our own expertise from our own tech backgrounds, but there's a broader set of expertise beyond us at CCI as well. We've mentioned programming. That's absolutely key, but there's a bunch of, a palette of other tools that we are happy to work with. We're happy to mentor students in developing further. These include signal processing, machine learning and AI, computer vision, chip design, tangible interfaces, multimodal sensing, biosensing, radio analysis, and a bunch of other things. And we draw on a bunch of different academic fields. In our work, we've published in a lot of different areas, and we want to support students in finding their particular academic niche. And so this could be at, within a very specific field, or it might be an intersection of a few different fields. This could include human-computer interaction and machine learning, which we've already mentioned, as well as signal processing, accessibility, building and understanding technologies for use by people with disabilities, education, art and design, product design, computer graphics, music, neuroscience, psychology, cognition, health and well-being, social science, and again, I think I'm leaving some off. So again, in sum, if there are some words in there that ring out to you and you say, yeah, that's a thing I'm interested in, even if you're not interested in the other 75 or 80% of what I said, that's awesome. You're the kind of student that we are excited to work with. For us, it's not about taking an off-the-shelf set of tools and saying, we have to do creative machine learning, or we have to do signal processing for computer vision and audio. We don't necessarily think that way at CCI. At the end of the day, one of the reasons I'm really happy to be in this community is that everybody around is really excited at fundamentally about making technologies that are impactful to real people. Technologies that are equitable, that are accessible maybe to people who haven't been able to use these technologies before, who haven't been able to do things without the technologies that we build, technologies that operate ethically in society, technologies that augment and expand rather than replace human abilities. And I would even say a little bit more about this. I think that at the moment there's often a misconception in creative computing that we're trying to just make computers that do creative stuff, like make art or music on their own. And there are parts of that that are intellectually interesting, but to the extent that anybody at CCI does anything like that, it's really grounded in saying, what can we do to support human creators better? What can we do to get more people involved in creation or in design? Or what can we do to educate more people about how AI and other technologies actually work, so that we can help people become better citizens in a democratic society, making decisions about these really complicated technologies. We're absolutely excited about people making stuff, making new art, music, games, experiences. We are really committed to building a creative computing community that welcomes diverse perspectives and experiences and skills. And we're here in academia and at CCI because it's important to us to mentor junior researchers and to help other people build the technical and research skills that they need in order to do what they want. And of course, at the master's level, often it's building the skills in order to know what it is that you want to do next. So I'll leave it there. I think I've got a lot more that we could say about this, but maybe we'll open up to a discussion now.
Thank you so much, Rebecca and Mick, for that lovely introduction. I think the way you put it was very nice, Rebecca. I think one of the most precious things about the CCI is how diverse everyone's backgrounds are, and they all come together and just create amazing, super interesting and impactful projects together. And yeah, I'm really grateful as well to be part of that space. So thanks both for the introductions. Now we are lucky to have Kenneth Lim with us, who's a current MRes student. So I think if you're happy with that, Rebecca and Mick, I think it would be great to hear a bit about Kenneth's experience. So if you want to turn your mic and camera on, Kenneth, we can maybe have a chat now.
Yeah.
Is it working? Yes. Amazing. Hi, Kenneth. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, I guess it would be really nice to hear a bit about yourself and what brought you to study this MRes in creative computing at CCI. So if you want to share some bit about maybe what you were doing before, what's your area of expertise, that would be amazing.
Yeah, so I'm Kenneth Lim. Just before coming to do this MRes course at CCI, I was studying for MA at the RCA in Information Experience Design. And so I guess kind of the one thing that kind of led me to kind of do the MRes at CCI is kind of just to figure out what the next step for me are. So whether that is kind of going into a PhD afterward, or is it something that's kind of not directly doing a PhD afterward, but kind of maybe working for a few years afterwards, and then maybe after that consider a PhD. But that is something I'm kind of still working out as part of this course at this moment. So kind of my kind of research interest is kind of based around languages and also machine understanding of languages. And kind of more specifically into areas like translations, language change, and things like that. And so, so that's quite this year in MRes is kind of an opportunity for me to kind of really narrow down which specific areas that I would be most interested in taking forward.
Amazing. And how it's been your experience being part of the CCI community, because you've been with us for quite a long time now, so you've been there like in real life in the space. What is the thing that like your favorite thing about being part of this community?
Yeah. I mean, like, kind of before I started the MRes, I'm already like involved with CCI like as a associate lecturer. So like I kind of teach part-time as well. And so like just like last year, we had a few months to be able to be in person at CCI for a lot longer than we have now. And the space itself is really amazing. It's kind of purpose built for CCI, and kind of we have a great community there as well. But even now, we are having kind of this remote sessions and things like that. The sense of community is still there. Like the staff and the research personnel are all very engaged, and like we have like weekly research gathering of sorts. So all the PhD students, MRes students, and kind of people doing research would gather, and one of us would present what they are working on right now, what their research is about, and things like that. That's really helpful. It helps you to see like what everyone's working on, and you have a great diversity of stuff. You have people working in very technical machine learning kind of research, and then you have people who's looking more towards the kind of social use of technology as well. So that's really great.
Yeah, it's a great space to be. That's amazing. Thanks so much for sharing that, Kenneth. So yeah, I guess it would be also interesting to hear about how do you see yourself evolving in this like research pathway? What's changing your views on what you see your career being maybe in the next few years, or where do you want to take it, or what do you see that's next?
Yeah, I mean, like, I've only started this MRes for like a couple months, but even in just this 2 months time, I've already I've really learned a lot from kind of all the classes that I've been attending. So like some of the classes, they are more technically focused, so we kind of learn how to deal with multi-dimensional data. And then there's also classes that's a lot more theoretical, where we kind of focus on kind of contemporary kind of computing related thinkers, and also social computing related thinkers, what they're writing about, what their ideas are, and then to practice writing on our own as well. So like even in these 2 months, there's already a lot of material that I've already been introduced. Kind of going forward, like I hope to be able to kind of bring those things, those knowledge that I've learned into kind of my own research practice, and kind of see how I can apply them. I mean, I have some ideas already, but I can't wait to know more.
That's great, Kenneth. Thanks so much. Yeah, I guess another thing that I had in my mind that maybe it would be interesting to hear more about would be also from Mick and Rebecca about the entry requirements for the MRes. So maybe we could talk a little bit about what's the application process like, and yeah, just hear a bit what students might have to do in order to jump on board with us on this course.
So that's a good question. In general, the MRes has got a fairly open application process, in that we are more interested, as always, in where someone is in their life and what they've done and what their experience is, than we are in just what's on the page in terms of their kind of progress, their official kind of tick box progress in life. I mean, personally, I'm almost not interested at all in that. But you know, unless I think it's important. Obviously, it's nice to see what people have done, but it's also, I think we understand many people have different routes to through education, and I think that's also something you should bear in mind. We care more about your ideas than we care about necessarily everything that's on your CV. Having said all of that, in general, we expect people to have had a degree, to have completed a degree. And I think that's, if you haven't, then I think you should probably look at a different offer. That's not always the case, but generally speaking, I would say, like 90%, 95% of people who are looking at this course should really think about a degree if they haven't got one first. Some people also choose to do a master's before they do an MRes. And I think that's up to you. I had a PhD student. He's literally he's been in the system for years. He did an undergraduate degree. He published a paper, as part of his undergraduate degree, and then he did an MSc, and then he did an MRes, and then he did a PhD, and he just did it all. And now he's getting to the end of his PhD. It's literally been 10 years. And I was saying, what are you going to do? And he's like, I'm going to get a job as an academic. That's what I'm going to do. And I think that watching that process, some people do choose to do that because that gives you the maximum thinking time. Having said that, if you had an undergraduate degree and you felt pretty confident that you knew it was research you really wanted to go into, I think we would be very interested in seeing your application, even if you didn't have an MSc or an MA. I think if you had, I think that if you're concerned about whether or not research is what you want to do, then you might want to consider doing an MSc first. And so I think it's, or an MA, to kind of build up your own kind of experience, start, in terms of your core skills and your engagement with the topic. But yeah, if you want to get involved with those deep ideas, you want to start thinking philosophically, you want to extrapolate and develop new areas and bring your own experiences, understand how to do that well, then yeah, I think we'd like to hear from you. And so we're more interested in you as a person. That's the first thing. Secondly, sure, an undergraduate degree is probably required, and it will definitely make it easier for you. And so you should do that first if you haven't done that. And if you're still not sure whether research is for you, you should consider one of our MSc programs, definitely. But yeah, if you really feel that research is where you want to go, and you just want to spend some time, in the company of people who think for a living, then yeah, I think that's more important than any other qualification. That's what I would say.
That's great, Mick. Thanks a lot. Is there anything you would like to add, Rebecca, on that?
No, I agree with all of that.
Amazing. Cool. Just a note that if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them on the chat, and we're going to do our best to cover them. Yeah, Mick, you were about to say something?
I was. And that's that just by way of helping people who might be thinking about doing an MRes to focus on what the end goal might be. We have a document which I'm going to show you a little bit of now. I'm just going to share my screen and show you that document, which is what we normally expect from a PhD application. And so one way to think about the MRes is as learning how to complete this form. So by the end of the whole MRes, what's really great is if you can fill in this form. It's not a form. It's not a form. But if you can take on the challenge of presenting a research idea to academics in a way that makes them think, oh yeah, that's really good. And this is what it is. So this is what we send to all of our PhD applicants. I hope you can all see this. And if you get in touch with us and you say, oh, I want to do a PhD, I will immediately send you this and say, okay, well, I need this. And I want to just quickly talk you through to give you an idea. So the MRes is aimed, as I say, to get you to a point where this seems like something you're absolutely ready to do, right? And so it says your proposal, a PhD proposal, should be 1,000 words. So it's very short and very tight. We don't want to see research proposals that are 10,000 words long, and we often get those, right? And we always think, well, it's not about writing a lot. It's about being very focused, being very clear. We want one great sentence, not 100 okay sentences, right? So your proposal must demonstrate that you can clearly describe relevant research questions in creative computing, and that you understand the potential relevance and impact of your research. And so that's what, this is the thing, that's what we want to craft. The MRes is to help you craft that knowledge, understanding. And then, this is the structure. So we also expect a proposal to be in a very specific structure where you say, these are my aims, exactly these aims, a nice short paragraph. And then these are my questions. And the idea of research questions can just take an awful long time to get your head around, But by the time we get to a proposal, we want to see a very concise list, normally not more than 2 or 3 very specific things you hope to explore, very succinctly expressed, and in ways that we also can see have that potential. And then also your research proposal, when you get to that point in your life, it really should demonstrate that you know the background context, that your questions are well supported by other research, that they're not just ideas you've had in the bath, they're things that you've thought deeply about and that you can talk about in terms of what other people have done. I think on top of that, we also need to see a proposed project plan. And one thing you'll learn on the MRes is that a project plan is not the same as what actually ends up happening. But that's okay, because what we want to know is whether you can plan, whether you can plan a research project, which is part of what the MRes is there to help you understand through the different projects that we do. And also we want to see, more than ever, we want to understand that you grasp the ethical implications of what it is you're proposing to do. Because more and more this is becoming essential to all kinds of research. And then on top of that, we want to see a portfolio of your work and the sorts of stuff you might expect from other forms of applications and referees. And also we want to see a bibliography, and not just a bibliography of things that might be tangentially relevant, but those few things that are absolutely central to describing the problem that you're looking to explore. So I just wanted to share that with you. And just to reinforce, that's not what we want for the beginning of the MRes. That's what we want to help you to be able to do very well by the end of the MRes. And if you're looking at that now and you're thinking, yeah, I really would like to do that, but I'm not sure where to start, I think the MRes is the right place for you to be. And that's it.
Thanks, Mick. That was very useful to go through it. Amazing. So I don't know if we have any other questions coming through from the chat. If they're not, is there anything else you would like to share with the audience, Mick, Rebecca, or Kenneth, before we make it to the end?
Not from me. I'm all done.
Amazing.
Oh, the last thing that I'll say is that I didn't do an MRes exactly, but when I was coming out of undergrad, and then even in my I have a complicated academic background, and I did a master's in music technology, and coming out of that, I was very much in a position that sounds like what Mick just described, and I was would have loved to have this program, and I probably would have had a shorter academic training period if I had had a program like this. And I ended up doing a lot of extra work because there weren't mentors around with the kind of interdisciplinary expertise focused on research training that that we have. But that said, I am really glad that I took the time that I needed as a young emerging researcher to, number one, figure out what the research landscape was in the areas that were interesting to me. And for me, coming out of undergrad, I was a musician and I had a computer science degree, and I knew there were ways to combine these sort of, but beyond looking at the software that I was using in my music practice, I didn't know what else might be out there. And so the first research that I did was very exploratory research that just helped me, come to grips with how my computational skills and my existing computational skills could be useful in, at that time, asking and answering new questions about music. But also I was learning about, what is the landscape of the research field? What does it even really mean to be publishing in different venues? What types of approaches are there to generating knowledge in this whole, this really messy incredibly interesting landscape that includes, humanities research, creative practitioners, technologists, and sort of every combination of those. And where in that landscape did I want to find myself? And so I'm very fortunate that I had the time to learn about that, to try some fairly, short-term, low-stakes projects in that space to figure out what am I really most interested in, where do I feel like my skills will enable me to make an impact, and what kind of work do I want to commit to for a PhD. And so by the time I did do a PhD, I really was much more effective at it. I think I was much happier than I would have been otherwise, because I knew that what I was working on was interesting to me. I knew what it meant to publish. I had an idea of the kinds of methods that I wanted to use. I had, had ideas of who the important people were in the field, and had actually, met some of them through the first conference papers that I published. So it really, really, for me personally, was beneficial to my career. And so again, I'm not particularly interested in churning out more people who are just copies of me. I find it much more interesting to help people become, the versions of themselves that they find interesting. But I do find it really important to try to give people the sorts of it's the sorts of mentorship and the sorts of eye-opening to the broader landscape that I was fortunate to receive.
Thanks for sharing that, Rebecca. That's lovely to hear. Amazing. So all I'm going to say now is that if you have any further questions about the MRes or anything about the CCI, here's our email. I'm just going to put it on the chat. So please feel free to reach out with whatever questions you might have. And yeah, we'll do our best to answer them. Also, if you are interested in the MRes creative computing, you might also be interested in checking out the MSc programs that we have. So we have later on today an open day session with Louis McCollum, who's the course leader for the MSc Data Science and AI for the Creative Industries. So you might be interested in joining that one as well. And we also are running another one with course leader Phoenix Berry on Thursday in the morning as well, about the MSc Creative Computing. So yeah, just invite you to check this out as well and join us if you can and you're interested. And yes, thanks a lot for joining us today, Mick, Rebecca, and Kenneth. It was lovely to hear more about the program. And yeah, we'll see you online very soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.